Alright guys, hello and welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. Today I'm going to be changing the whole front brake setup. So I'm going to be going for the 330mm from Tuning Art. The normal are 305mm, so they're the bigger discs. It comes with the bigger brackets, which basically space out the caliper, so you're able to get the bigger discs on there. And obviously the bigger disc gives you bigger surface area, so better braking. And it's coming with PBS pads, the Pro Race ones, so they're the best PBS that they do. It comes with all the bolts and all the washers and the brackets, discs, pads, everything you need to make it a complete upgrade. You can follow this just to do a standard brake swap as well for discs and pads. So if you want to see how to do it, stay tuned and I'll see you very shortly. Just look at how nice they look. Obviously they're just so much bigger than the other ones. It doesn't sound like a lot when it's only like 25mm, but just looking at them they do look a lot bigger. And when I put the wheel on the other side they just look massive. There's literally just a little bit of clearance. Obviously I'm running 17-inch. There's maybe 6-7mm clearance, which is enough. I've had to take the corner weights off the inside face, so I'm going to have to go down to the tyre shop and get them re-weighted, but they do fit inside on a 17-inch. They really are a piece of art. Tuning Art to be precise. So big shout out to Tuning Art and Ben Al, they're lovely. The kit just comes completely ready. If you know what you're doing, it's easily hour and a half job to do both sides. Okay, so before we get into the video, I just want to put a little disclaimer at the beginning. I'm not a mechanic, and even if I was, I hold no responsibility if you damage your car after trying to copy this video or hurt yourself or anything like that. Think of this video more as I'm showing you how I'm changing the brakes, and it's up to your own risk if you try to attempt this. Brakes aren't the first thing to be doing if you're not mechanically minded. If you don't feel comfortable, just get someone else to do it, because if something goes wrong you end up injuring yourself or hurting someone else. So one more thing before we get into it. If you're enjoying this video at whatever point, don't forget to give it a like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It shows us a lot of support. The first thing I'm going to do is crack the wheels off, jack the car up, put an axle stand under it on a structural part of the car, and then take the wheel off completely, and then we'll get into doing that. I'm just going to speed this bit up because obviously a bit boring, so I'll see you after that. We're going to start by taking these pins out. So I'm just using a little extender for the ratchet. Just knock on that first bit. My caliper's already damaged anyway, but just be careful you don't scratch all the paint off and stuff. Obviously we damaged it quite a lot trying to get the pins out the last time. Then I'm just going to use a small Allen key which fits in the hole on another extender just to knock it that little bit further through. I'm just going to get some pliers on the pin at the back. Just lever it off the bolt at the top. So that clip just pops off as soon as that pin's through. That's one pin out. next pin. Then you're just pushing the pads apart away from the disc, and that pushes the two pistons back in. Important as well before you do this is take the cap off the brake reservoir so it relieves the pressure, because otherwise you're going to be pushing against a pressurised unit. As long as you've got a little bit of a gap like that, just get your screwdriver, just slowly ease the pistons back in. And you're just doing that on both sides until both the pistons on both sides are all the way depressed back in. And the pads just slide out like that. Okay, so next you've got the brake sensor, and then you've got the brake cable where all the brake fluid comes down through. So we're just going to pop those off. Just get a little screwdriver under there, just literally pop it off like that, and then just wiggle it. You can get a screwdriver or a spanner in the back there, and the same with this one. Hasn't got a little metal clip, you can just wiggle it off. So then when we drop the caliper, it's not going to be putting any strain on the lines. So I'm just going to get that one off. Obviously you don't need to see it, just pop it out like that. I can't do it with only one hand, so I'm going to do that with two hands and then we'll carry on. Okay, so I've soaked all 4 bolts with WD-40 just down the back of the head, just down there. Obviously you try not to get anywhere on the front of the caliper or anywhere around there. And then again on the back of the disc, if you're just changing the pads, you don't need to do this. So just WD-40 on all 4 bolts, and then I've just cracked them off with a breaker bar. One bolt. So it's good at this point. I'm using my ramp and then a couple of bricks just to rest the caliper once it comes off, because it's going to be putting too much pressure to be able to reach the floor, obviously from being jacked up. So you can see the caliper's free. Just hold it in with your arm as you're holding the ratchet. So the caliper just slides off like that. Just take the line and then just rest it where there's no strain on the line. You can see there's loads of slack in there, and that can just stay there for now. So next we're just going to take these little locking pins out. Shouldn't really be done up that tight, it's literally just to hold the disc in place so the wheel bolts can go through the big holes. Then just hold your disc as you're doing it, because that's the only thing left that's holding them on. And that's your disc off. Okay guys, so like I said, if you are following this video just to do the discs and pads, you can stop at this point. That's all you need to do, is just put the new disc on, give the the hub a little bit of a clean with a wire brush and some brake cleaner. Just skip this bit basically with the brackets and I'll carry on, and you can just join up from there. Also, like I said earlier, if you are enjoying the video, don't forget to give it a like, give it a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just makes us want to push more and do better videos, get bigger and better. It's really showing the support, so I appreciate that, all the people that have subscribed so far. So let's get back to it. So this is the bracket that's being replaced with the extra long one. I'm going to insert a picture now just so you can see how much further it does stick out. Obviously it gives you more clearance for the 330mm discs. So we're just going to, I've already cracked these nuts off at the back. I'm just going to undo them now. So the bolts at the front are E18 and the bolts at the back are E16, just so you know. So we just last few little turns. And that's the bracket off. Take the old bolts out, throw them away, because obviously the kit comes with all new bolts. So this bracket basically replaces that one, goes on that way, so it goes on towards you on the inside of the hub, not that way towards the drive shaft. Obviously it's made by Tuning Art, so a big shout out to Tuning Art and to Ben Al. He's also done a little personalisation there of driveway builds for our YouTube channel, so thank you very much for that, Ben. So that just sits like that, so we're going to start putting them back together now. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little run through of all the bolts and washers and everything like that before we start putting everything back together. So these shorter bolts have the cross washer on them and they go on the back, which holds the bracket on. So you've got 2 washers, 2 bolts per side, so obviously 4 of each. And then these bigger, longer ones have the big washers on them, and that's an M12, sorry, not an M12, 12mm Allen key. So you're probably going to have to pop to Halfords to grab one of those because they don't come in a normal Halfords kit. And then you've got the grub screws, the locators for the brake disc. So you should have basically 8 of the bolts and 4 of the grub screws, and then all the washers allocated to each bolt. So now as we're going through, we're just going to clean everything up at each new stage. So just get the wire brush, just clean it all up, get all that brake dust and crap off of it. Just make it nice and clean and get a nice tight purchase when you put the bolts through. So just put one bolt in, get it threaded on a little bit, get the next one on. And we can start doing them up. So these bolts at the back are a 19. Just do a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom, so it doesn't end up getting crooked. And we're just going to tighten those up a little bit more with a breaker bar. So the next step is putting the disc back on, so we're just going to get the grub screws, put a little bit of copper grease or lithium grease, whatever you've got to hand, just so they don't end up getting seized in, because if they get seized in, the heads can end up snapping and you won't be able to get the disc off. Well, you will, but it'll be very difficult. So we're going to get those set up ready to go. So we don't want any contamination on the disc. So the next bit Get your brake cleaner. Inside first. Get one grub screw almost all the way in, and that'll just hold it, and then just get your next one. And then just hold the disc as you're threading it in. They don't need to be super tight, it's literally just to hold the disc in place so you can put the ball bolts through. So that's the disc on. So I've just watched a couple of the videos back that I've been filming, and I've noticed that my hairy legs have been getting in the way, so apologies for that. Sorry if you don't like that. Just going to clean the front of the disc as well. So a nice bit of brake cleaner on there. And then we're just going to clean the calipers as well. You can use a wire brush to get the majority of it off. Just be gentle, don't scratch the paint. And I'm only doing the insides and the back bit with the wire brush because you're not going to see those anyway. But if you're a bit more meticulous, then don't use a wire brush, just use a bit of brake fluid, brake cleaner, sorry, not brake fluid, that'd be good. For me, I'm obviously not overly bothered, I'm just getting the excess dust build up on the inside out. That ends up building up in the end and can cause squeaks and the pad's not to work properly, so just want to get the worst of it off. Obviously if you want to sit there for an hour or so and get it back to complete paint so there's no dust on there, that's up to you, but for me that's good enough. So caliper can just go back on now, just slide it over the disc like that, and then just get your big bolts. Again, the same as the bracket, just go a couple of turns just so it sits there. So like I said earlier, that is a 12mm Allen key. So you pop down to Halfords, I think they're about £7. Tighten the majority of it up by hand. Obviously, it's the joy of having new bolts. I know what you're thinking, there's not an ounce of joy in my voice, but that's just me, I'm afraid. You must be used to it by now, surely. Monotone mic, they call me. Right, so I'm just going to nip those up now with a breaker bar to make sure they're nice and tight. Okay, just a bit more brake cleaner. So now the next stage is the pads in. I've got these brand new PBS pads, the Pro Race ones. So you've got Pro Track, which is for like fast road, and then Pro Races for like more track day kind of driving. So we're going to get a little dab of grease See, there's two holes, well, two little dimples there. That's pretty much where the pistons go. So just a little blob, you don't need a lot. It's just to stop the piston squeaking. So obviously make sure it's the same shape as the disc, whatever side you put it in. So that just slots in like that. Other side. Don't need to go mad, just a little bit. And that side just slots in. Then we're going to do the same with the pins. Just get a nice amount of grease on the pins. Like I said earlier, you'll be able to get them out a lot easier next time. All the way down. All over that little shackle at the end as well. These go in pretty tight and they're held in by the clip anyway, so they're not going to like fall out as long as they go all the way in. So we're just going to guide it in, make sure it's going through the pad. Just do the top one first. So that's all the way through. So now we're just going to get the other one greased up so we're not constantly getting our hands dirty. And mine are pretty filthy anyway, but the joys of working on your own car. So all we're going to do with this next one is just literally pop it through just so it rests like that, and then take the glove off. Now we need the clip. So the clip basically hooks under there like that with the butterflies on the inside. So you just hook it round the top pin like that, and you're basically just pressing it down and pushing the pin so that it holds that in place, and then just push the pin all the way through. That's done. So the next stage is just to knock these pins through. Again, just be careful of your caliper if you don't want to scratch all the paint out. And then just get your little extension. Just makes it. Okay, so my camera ended up running out of battery, so I've just switched to the GoPro. So what I was saying was just get an extender for your ratchet and just stick it on there, the same as how we got it out. Just make sure it's all the way in. You get to the point where you feel resistance and it's like firm, you can tell it's all the way through. Just make sure it is on both sides, not caught anywhere. So each company has their own kind of running in procedure basically. So the PBS is probably the same as most other ones. It's pretty much, you know, 0 from 30 down to 0 5 times, say, quite hard braking, and then from 60 down to 30, and then from like 70 down to 40, and just keep doing that. General braking, make sure you don't get the discs and the pads too hot because you end up glazing them and they won't work properly. Just do a couple of stopping, you know, procedures and then leave it to cool down for a little bit, then do it again. You're just basically trying to bed the pads in with the discs, and that's pretty much it. Just give your caliper a clean afterwards. Make sure before you do anything, just go in the car, push your foot down on the pedal with the cap still off, just to bring the pads in so they nip up a little bit, and then you can put your cap back on. If you're doing this and you haven't changed the lines, because the kit does come with lines if you want them, if you don't have the lines and you've just done what I've just done, you don't need to bleed the system. There was no you know, bleed nipples being opened and air getting in or anything like that, so just do that and you're ready to go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.